Welcome to another edition of Black and Azul, now in our 24th episode. Don't get us wrong, we're back in the studio, but we appreciate everybody from tuning in from last week. We were at Avaya Stadium, a wonderful occasion. I've got Jamon Moore here, and I've got Joel Soria here. I am Charles Wollin. A lot to unpack today, guys, but let's start with this press conference. Let's start with Florian Jungwirth and what he had to say and unpack it all. Jungwirth had to say on the Quakes' current style is the most complex he's played in. He says, quote, "Yeah, we had results. When you have results, it's a great thing. After the first games, we lost 4 games. Everyone was blaming the system. Sorry, now everyone is expletive their pants." So obviously, y'all can see what he's referring to here, but kind of, yeah, off the cuff, but yeah, Florian Jungwirth, he's never shy from really telling you how it is, right?
Yeah, definitely not. He's gonna say it with sincere bluntness, and that's what he did today. He's accurate. You know, the Quakes are the team that you do not want to go against. And at the same time, the team that you do want to go against, right? You want to prove everything. But we were talking about this, Jamon. It really makes the Quakes make teams, you know, choose one extreme or the other. They make you either lean on one side of the spectrum or the other. Teams are either going to follow their style completely through and through, and if anything, they're going to try and add a little more to that. They're going to add a bit more emphasis to their own style, or they're going to try and go completely, you know, off the rail and go with a peculiar style that they've never played in to try and offset these Quakes. And certainly the Quakes have taken huge advantage of that because, you know, as we saw last weekend, they went up against Vancouver, and as you were mentioning, you know, Vancouver was really playing a game they'd never played before, and they were punished for that. Early on, they had a set-piece goal. We'll talk about that later on. But, you know, the Quakes, you know, throughout the 90 minutes really made them pay for playing a style they were never familiar with.
It's really a huge tonal change now at Avaya Stadium. And we go up for the press conference today, got to see the players come in from practice. I mean, just the way that they're carrying themselves is with the highest confidence, you know, I've ever personally seen this team. And I was starting as the season ticket holder back in 2012, and so I've been following the team for quite some time. And it's really kind of infectious, and it comes out in these quotes in the press conference as well. Today, you saw that confidence coming out from Matias and his comments, and Flo from his comments, and in Harold Cummings' comments as well. And they were all out there basically saying, you know, this is a family. It was rocky at first. It's gotten better, but now we are a family. We are executing together, and yes, absolutely, we feel that we are a team that you have to reckon with.
Yeah, they have to really just balance themselves on that fine line, right? They don't want to fall to either side because obviously, as we know, the season is near or past the halfway point now, and the Quakes haven't won anything. You know, they'll admit it. You know, they don't want to get ahead of themselves, and they want to keep improving as the games go on. But they still have a lot to prove, and you know they'll have the opportunity to prove to us all once again that you know they are a playoff worthy team. I think now the percentage of them getting into the playoffs is at a all-time high 79%.
Yeah, it's continuing to go up every week, and you know, I've been saying that the models have been playing catch-up on this for a while, and I think it's starting to get closer to what reality is, as some teams are starting to slip off and other teams are starting to rise up, just like we've been talking about on this show. You know, it's going to be a dogfight to the very end in the Western Conference for those playoff positions.
Yeah, I like what Florian has to say here, especially this last line. Sorry, now everyone is expletive their pants. I mean, At this point, is it is it the media that covers Major League Soccer? Is it the players? Is it the fans? What is that? I definitely think it's media and folks that follow this league. The Quakes have been kind of this sleeping giant for such a long time in the last number of years. Of course, they made the playoffs in 2017, but the last time before that was 2012, where they had this historic season, and then they didn't get out of the first round and lost at home to Robbie Keane and David Beckham in the first round, if folks remember. And so I like the fact that he's saying this in this kind of playful, fun way, and he's like, "Hey, look at what we've started, look at what we've created," and I think it's a cool little snippet to say about this team, and hopefully other media, other folks are also taking notice of the Quakes, because when you're hot in MLS and when you're have consistency, the media is going to follow you, and when you don't, there's rock bottom, and the Quakes experienced that last season, and they have in other seasons too. But now, with the fact that they're playing so well, and as you guys know, the rising tide rises all ships. So that's what I got to say on that. Let's turn quickly to Matias Almeida. It's a long, lengthy quote, but it has character, it has passion, it has everything that you would expect from Matias Almeida. He says, "There is a work method that this team has understood. We all train the same way. We take it seriously, show love and passion, regardless of things are going well or not. That doesn't require an explanation. You can see and feel it. It's how we stay on the same path. I've been getting to know everyone on the team through the translator, Agustin Salazar, although many already speak Spanish. I've known that I have confidence in them. I don't differentiate between the players. They are all equal. Time will always set everything in its place, and the unity and confidence I have in them has been growing because I chose this team and kept 95% of the same roster. It shows confidence when a coach arrives to a team that's been struggling, and it gives them confidence when I tell them to be happy and enjoy the game. I think we're on the right path."
He's a psychologist and a prophet. That's all I can say about Matias, really.
He was the only one believing in this team when no one else did. And he kept telling us the results were going to come. And I think you pointed it out earlier in the week, Joel, that he said after the first 4 losses, they were going to win more games than they were going to lose. And I sat there in that press conference and I said, not going to happen. I think he feels like he has to say that to try to keep some confidence in the team, but I didn't believe it. And I thought at the time he was just posturing for the benefit of the players. I don't think he was just posturing for the benefit of the players anymore. I think he knew that they were getting closer to making that breakthrough. And clearly Tommy Thompson felt it, and other people on the team felt it, and they came ready to play in that 5th game, and we've seen what's happened since then. And now it's kind of just been an explosion.
Yeah, in 2015, Matias Almeida told the press in Guadalajara that he was going to awaken the giant that is Chivas de Guadalajara. He obviously went on and did that, winning 5 titles. Bringing back a league title to Chivas for the first time in 9 years. In 2011, River Plate, arguably the biggest team in Argentina, fell to the 2nd division for the first time ever in their 100-plus year existence. A month later, Matias Almeida, who had then retired, subsequently took over as the manager of River Plate, a huge club with huge expectations, and even more so when they were sitting at Nacional B, the 2nd division. He brings them up. He goes on to Banfield, a team that at that time was also in the 2nd division, didn't have the deepest pockets. He wins the 2nd division title, and he brings them up. He's an expert at what he does. And if you want to use that phrase, you can definitely tie it to every single project that he's taken on. Like you were saying, the Quakes have been a sleeping giant, and they have. The Quakes are one of the most storied teams in this league. They have 2 stars over their crest. They have a history, a really, really long, deep-rooted history that it involves the likes of George Best, one of the best players to ever grace the soccer fields. And That's what he's doing right now. I think we're all really seeing something historical happen, and I don't think, like I said, it's reached its full potential. I would say that we're in third gear right now. A couple of months down, the team is certainly going to hit sixth.
Yeah, I mean, this quote has everything in it, as I, led off with before I actually read it, and it just speaks so, it just speaks volumes of how genuine Matias Almeida is, and how ready he is to open his heart up to chatting about how he feels about this. And this is not BS. Again, this is not BS. This is the real stuff. This is a guy saying, quote, "It shows confidence when a coach arrives to a team that's been struggling, and it gives them confidence when I tell them to be happy and enjoy the game." Wow. Amazing. Incredible. The results obviously have come with it now. And, from someone that is covering this, you just can't help but pinch yourself a little bit, because you don't come across someone who's able to be this human, especially in this league that has had its problems and it has had its issues with being able to kind of break through and to be able to have people be included, or have people understand how a coach has their philosophy or puts their starting 11 on the field, or why is this person playing. And so Matias Almeida really has some special pizzazz. I just can't credit him enough for being an amazing motivator, conductor of the orchestra, tactical magician, whatever you want to call him, rabbi, priest, everything. But it's human, and it's deep, and it comes from the heart. And as someone that is a football romantic and a global football as I am, and the rest of the team here is, this is the kind of quote that you want to hear your manager say, because he's behind it 100%.
Yeah, what I can say is I think Matias is certainly one of soccer's most genuine personas, without a doubt. And his career has really shown that. When he was 30 years of age, he, in a way, fell out of love with the game due to personal reasons, and he's been open about this. He was an alcoholic, and he was also dealing with depression. But on the field and in the soccer sphere, he was losing love because he said there was just too much hypocrisy going around, right? The fact that things were really unfair, and all the contradictions that were being said, and all these really, really sketchy situations he was being put in. So he turned away from it. And some way, somehow, he has been able to find his way back into the game, and really has been able now to establish his own rules, right? At least to what it pertains to his inner circle. He's been been able to control the way that he manages himself, the way that his players manage themselves, the way the club is run. And I think that really, really benefits him, when it comes to the day-to-day operations. And obviously we've shown, it's been shown what results come from that, right? The positive results. For me, I personally think there's no reason that this team will not lift at least one trophy if he stays for 4 years. Matias has the abilities, to break barriers like he has already done within this locker room, and can definitely take this team, to the summit.
We are Black and Azul. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend about Black and Azul, and tell them to like and subscribe, and then tell that friend to tell a friend. Let's cascade this. We'll take your questions in a little bit, but let's transition to the Colorado match that's upcoming. There's 2 home games upcoming. Colorado, they're very interesting because they didn't have the best beginning of the year, but now they're on a good run of form. The last 10 matches, 5 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. The last 5 haven't been particularly brilliant, but they put together some consistency, Jamon Moore.
Yeah, they did. They changed the coach. And Connor Casey who is an assistant, has come in as the interim and done really a commendable job. And what I think he's really done with this club is he's helped them kind of find the identity that fits them. From the previous coach, effectively, there was a lot of comments about him playing a lot of players out of position. Part of it was just Connor Casey getting them into the right positions and asking them to do the things that they're good at. And based upon that, they were able to start compiling some results. And now they did lose their last game, and so the form hasn't been great. But some of that has been due to like lightning games where they've had a couple hour-long breaks in the middle of games because of lightning storms.
Yeah, they also.
It's very difficult to play in those situations, and it's just awkward and no continuity, and it's tough to like look at those results and go, okay, they did or they did not deserve it, right? Because sometimes that can play into it a bit.
Yeah, they've also had a set of injuries. Kai Kamara was absent last game. It's still questionable whether he's going to be playing this weekend. And let's not forget, he's their leading scorer. Also, Tim Howard was pulled out of their previous game halftime. So obviously that played a role on that outcome. Connor Casey, like you said, his work has paid dividends. The Rapids are somewhat trending upwards. Still, they have more than half losses than they do have wins. I think they have 10 losses and about 5 wins. So by any means, are they going to be a playoff contender? Jamon, are going to have to take advantage of their set pieces.
There's one game that gives me pause, and that was the game that they played against LAFC. And yeah, there were a couple players that were out for the Gold Cup and such, and so international breaks, but they stayed compact in that game. They picked their opportunities well, and when they got the chance to break, they did. And they've got a bit of speed to be able to do that. Of course, the question with Kai Kamara, I understand. I do think that the Quakes have shown themselves to be a little bit susceptible, particularly early in games recently, to set pieces. Sometimes some organizational issues, someone can get free. This is where Colorado has absolutely shined, particularly in this stretch that they've gone in since Connor Casey has come on. They've got 10 corner goals this season.
Right.
10. It's far and away the most in the league. And the Quakes have been giving up corner goals.
That's where they're most susceptible,
right?
for
it
sure.
happened against Vancouver. Yeah. So this is where the Quakes are most susceptible. To me, it's not about whether the Quakes are going to have 70% possession. I completely agree. I think the one thing that you have to consider is what is going to happen in that 30% when Colorado does get on the ball. And I think that they are more dangerous than people give them credit for in those situations because, again, they're kind of playing right now, they've got nothing to lose. They're playing loose.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of team that can sometimes be dangerous. We saw that happen when the Quakes played RSL and played New England earlier in the season. When they face a loose team that has some confidence also coming in, and they don't have a lot to lose, anything can happen. You never know with the red card, set pieces. Those are all the things that the Quakes have got to try to keep those types of situations to a minimum. They have to focus on their game and ripping apart opponents the way that they have.
I think the difference also lies in the fact that the Quakes have had a really, really good stretch of not impeccable stretch at home at Avaya Stadium. They haven't lost since that 5-0 defeat against LAFC back in March, if I'm not mistaken, early April, somewhere around there. So the Quakes are really, really feeding off of that home momentum right now. And, we'll see what Colorado shows up. Are they going to try and play out of their skin? Are they really going to try and go for that heavy counterattack, being spearheaded by either it's Kai Kamara or Lewis, or are they going to bunker? Are they going to sit back and are they going to try and and take advantage of the few set pieces that surely will appear for them.
Yeah, and Matias said today at the press conference that he believes that there's really two different Colorado teams. There's how they play on the road,
right,
and there's how they play at home. And but obviously he's been studying them. I think he's expecting them to play a certain way. But the interesting thing about the Quakes is, like you said, they kind of get teams to play in a different mode. So it's quite possible that this is the Colorado's, all the tape says this.
Yeah.
And then the team that shows up and plays the Quakes, because of the man marking system and
also
factors,
because they're doing really well, right?
Right.
So there's two factors why opposing teams really, really want to showcase their skill against the Quakes. Yeah. One is because obviously the Quakes, run with the most peculiar scheme in the league, probably that the league has seen in years, maybe ever, to be honest with you, if you really, really want to look into it and dissect it. And the other being the fact that, they're one of the best 5 teams in the league at the moment.
Yeah, Colorado 1-5-3 on the road, so 1 win, 5 losses, 3 ties. The Quakes 7-3-1 at home. The 3 losses, of course, were in the beginning of the year, and they've gone on a stretch of 7 wins and then a tie, and then they've had 2 games that were not league games. One, a win against Sac Republic in the Open Cup, and then a friendly tie last week at Avaya. So it's 10 unbeaten at home for the Quakes. So I think they're going to favor their chances. Also, Colorado, they've given up the most amount of goals in the Western Conference, 42. So we'll have to see. But if you're a betting person, I would assume that Avaya Castle's going to do its job. Let's move on. New signee. Carlos Fierro is with the team now. He's kind of slowly being integrated, like we chatted about a little bit last week. But what is going on with this Rio situation? TAM, GAM, international roster spot, moving this around to do this, to do that. But it's almost there. It's almost a done deal. Is that right?
Yeah, the Quakes are almost at the finish line with Andres Rios, a player who last played for Racing of Argentina, and he actually gave somewhat of an interview to a local outlet there in the surrounding city, or in Buenos Aires, saying that he's expecting to arrive here in the U.S. in San Jose sometime either on Thursday or Friday. That said, it's a done deal.
Yeah, and you used the word last week, Joel, circus.
Right.
I mean, all this machination of, and we talked about this on the show, like, right. We knew they were going to have to do something in order to obtain an international roster slot. It seemed like a simple thing where, they're going to take some GAM. They probably didn't have any TAM. I think they kind of proved that in one of the transactions. And they were going to trade it for an international roster slot. Instead, this is now like a 4-step process. Yeah. First, you got to go get the TAM. And you're going to have the TAM not to go get a roster spot, but in order to be able to buy down the player with TAM that you're going to acquire, you're going to send Guram Kasia on a plane all the way back to Georgia to go get his green card and miss at least the Vancouver game, could miss the Colorado game. Potentially. Yeah. And so that he can get that. I mean, it's just one thing after another.
I have to say, though, I have to give credit to Jesse Fiorinelli. I think it's a bit of masterclass from him. The fact that he really explored every scenario and decided on sending Guram Kasia back to Georgia. Given the fact that you have Harold Cummings, who's more than ready and eager to jump, in the starting 11, and to be honest, Harold hasn't played bad this season, so I don't think it's going to have a huge influence on how the game goes. I certainly think it's better to send Guram to Georgia than it is to, use some TAM or use some GAM and try to figure something out with another club to get an international spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, there were a number of other ways that this could have been done.
Right.
I just think they took the hardest path.
Yeah.
To get there.
Right. That's respectable.
It's
like going through an airport, right? So it's like you land at gate, you land in Terminal A, but then you've got the connection in Terminal G. It's like being in Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. I don't even know. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Fierro, of course. And I have to take this question because he's a former colleague of mine, Ted Firestone. He writes, What have you heard about Fierro, and think he'll get minutes? Joel Soria, you heard from a little bit in that category today, right?
Yeah, I don't think minutes will be coming anytime soon. I think Quakes fans were going to have to wait at least a couple of weeks to watch Fierro make his debut. But for sure, I mean, he's a player that is very well acquainted with Almeida, with his coaching staff, with the system. Now he really needs to just integrate and acclimate to his colleagues, and to the day-to-day functions, and obviously to the lifestyle here in San Jose, which I think won't be a big problem for him. But he's going to be stepping into some really tight competition. I'm really
Absolutely.
intrigued on how this is all going to work out, because there's options now, and I guess the most pragmatic way of looking at this is that Fierro's simply just going to be a 65-minute, 70th minute substitute for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that Matias has a luxury that we haven't seen here in San Jose in quite some time, which is you can make a summer signing and then just patiently work him in. I can't remember, the last time that the Quakes were in this type of situation. It's been a very long time, but they have that luxury. The team is not underperforming. You've got two wingers, and he's likely to slot into one of those winger spots or an outside back. Every one of those positions, you have really good quality right now, and you have depth. So there's really no rush to acclimate him. And I think Matias feels absolutely no pressure to get him onto the pitch, to be quite honest. I think the Quakes fans want to see him. They want to see what it is that we've got there.
Right.
But Matias feels no pressure whatsoever.
His words and his body language definitely showed that.
At the same time, a player who's trying to kind of resurrect their career as well, and as a functional guy, he's probably still trying to figure out what his best position is and where he can nail down first-team football. Let's be fair here.
Yeah.
I think the position that he may be able to rival strongly for or knock someone else out and maybe into this position is the number 10 spot. I think Magnus is doing well and doing fine, but still, if they had a player maybe a step up, a half step, maybe a tad bit more creative, is able to score a few more goals than Magnus, then you've really got something special there in this system. But I'm not trying to take away from what he's done so far. But I still think that if you add that number 10 spot, that specific position in front of the double pivots, it will be really a really fun team to watch.
Certainly a possibility, but I'm still going to lean with history on this one. I think history has told us time and time again that Vako, sooner rather than later, is going to go cold again. And I don't mean to hammer this on anyone, but that's what the trends have shown before, and it can certainly happen. Or Cristian Espinosa can see his way out of the 11, but all in all, I think, like you said, this is only a positive for the Quakes, and there's really no way to spin it as a negative.
I'll disagree with both of you. I think that actually the 10 is going to become Vako's by the end of the season. I think.
Oh, you think they're going to?
I think he's going to shift over. I think
side.
He's shown his quality on the ball. He's shown now that he's willing to distribute the ball, make better decisions on it, know when to shoot, know when to pass. And by the way, we talked to Matias today and asked him that question. We said, is there just a green light here?
Right.
And he's basically like, absolutely. I give my players complete freedom to make those types of decisions. And he showed that he's got a ton of trust in them. And we talked about the fact that he was probably doing this with Vako, and that's what was giving Vako kind of the freedom in order to play the way he has. And right now, he's got that freedom. I think he's going to end up back in the number 10 spot, and I think Fierro will find his spot on the wing. That's where I'm at.
Erickson is not going to take that one lightly.
Jamon Moore.
Not at all.
Bold predictions here on Black and Azul. We're going to get to your questions, I promise you, in a second. Shout out to Stu Berman, who says he really likes the old Amway jerseys. Frank says go Quakes. Matt Richardson says hashtag announce Joel. So I'm not really quite sure what that is.
Oh, yeah.
But, anyway. That's for another time, I guess, clearly.
Yeah.
But let's move on to actually talking about the last result, the Vancouver game, the Quakes, 3-1 winners in Vancouver. I have this kind of weird splitting image of the last time the Quakes made the playoffs, and in 2017, and it was this amazing, time, and the last game of the year and then the goal at the end, and having to go up to Vancouver and against a strong Vancouver team and losing 5-0 in 2017. I still have this image in my head, and here's a team that goes in there, concedes a goal, and just completely outplays Vancouver, especially in the second half. They were able to kind of seal up the game with around 20-25 minutes to go, with Eriksson's goal, which was the third goal of the game. But this just looks like a team that can't lose right now. Even if they're down, they still look like they're going to tie a match, and that's fine for them. But they can't lose. They're outshooting opponents. They outshot the Galaxy as well. And a lot of the chatter this week has been about the Quakes outshooting teams. I'm going to send it to you, Jamon Moore, and then you also want to break down this amazing shot chart that you've got for us, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone's seen it by now, right? Right now, the Quakes have put 32 shots on target. I'm sorry, total shots, not shots on target, but total shots the last two games, which combine the two games together is an MLS record. And now we can see if you can put that chart up there, Jason. So you can see from the chart here that there's an upward trend. Those 32, and you can take a look at the previous games. This is a goal differential chart that we're looking at, a shot differential chart, that we're looking at right here. Everything above the line is games where the Quakes have outshot their opponent, and everything below the line are the games where the opponent have outshot the Earthquakes. And what you can see from this is that trend's been going up for some time. This team is getting more and more comfortable with their offense. Joel, you and I looked at the data a little bit before the show. They're actually pressing higher up the pitch, as many as 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 yards higher, according to the information that we have. And that data is showing just how the Quakes right now are dominating opponents. They are shooting less. The Quakes are shooting more. They have the green light to shoot at any given time. Vaco and Espinoza are playing with complete liberty, and they are finding opportunities. Yes, there's a lot of shots getting blocked and things that are still not exactly perfect, but it really is maybe at the best, I think, in the last two games I've seen the Quakes play.
Yeah, amazing analysis, Jamon, and this stuff is really handy as this league becomes more data-driven too. These kind of numbers are amazing, and then off the charts too, right? And I think it's the first time in almost 2 decades that a team has had back-to-back this number of shots. Or is it an MLS record? I might need to be corrected here.
The most shots
Jake
in
Pisani
an MLS
here,
game,
yeah.
I think, is 36.
Okay.
That was back in 1998, so they haven't reached the 36 mark. Maybe they'll go for that against Colorado. 36. But 2 games of 32 back-to-back actually, I think, broke the old mark of back-to-back games by around 5 or so.
Yeah.
So quite a bit.
This speaks volumes to Almeida's style, right? One that obviously does prioritize defensive work. And we see that in the man marking system. We see that with the high press, the counter press, which has actually come out a little bit more recently, right? We were seeing that a lot against Vancouver, certainly a lot against RSL. But on, with the ball at their feet, they certainly have the options to take shots from wherever they please, because the possession has been certainly over 60%, it seems like, every game as of late. They have the passing chemistry down. They really know how to exploit channels. The attacking three, it's almost like you have 3 forwards. They're so fluid, and then you have Magnus Eriksson kind of compensating and anchoring them, breaking lines, opposing teams are not really trying to impose themselves on the Quakes. If it wasn't for, better finishing, the Quakes could have easily, racked up the goals scored over the last 5 games. This is certainly, like I said, and I'll say it again, this is the most impressive, thought-provoking, attractive brand of soccer in the league.
Absolutely.
And I will argue about it, any given day of the week. This league hasn't really seen anything like this, and I know a couple years back, everyone was talking about Greg Berhalter this, Greg Berhalter that, a very, very thoughtful, obviously, and astute coach, but I don't even think he's anywhere near close what Matias has been able, to bring to this league.
Yeah, and Bob Bradley, obviously, with LAFC has gotten a lot of credit, and as well he should. I think they've done a fantastic job there.
They've done a great job there. They certainly have, but they also have 2-3 players that have made tremendous difference, and that have been really good finds, and that their recruiting methodology should take most of the credit for. And those 2 players that I can name off the bat, or 3 players, is certainly Rossi, Bela, obviously, and Atuesta. Mm-hmm. Those 3 players have been the difference makers. But with Almeida here is you have a lot of guys who are quote unquote average players in the league, and you've been able to compose this really balanced roster and just really exploit it and milk it 110%.
They're only average players because of the fact that all these other teams benefit from having a DP that's had a brand name from a European league, and the media and some in the league and fans of other teams have branded that as so. And
right.
So you can see that this manager has gotten the best out of these players, and I hear this a lot. They're kind of average, they're average players, but they're not. They made the playoffs 2 years ago, and they just were looking for consistency, and it's hard to have consistency in a league that travels all over the country. It's 34 games, and you don't stay in your time zone or in your own region the whole time. And so, let's give credit to credit is due, and Almeida has this team kind of mopping up the bread and butter. So I see the Vancouver game as just bread and butter. Put Nutella or jam on your toast in the morning. Have your little cup of tea. 3-1, 3 points, no problem. The Quakes continue on a great roll. Let's move on and chat a little bit about the Leagues Cup, which I know, Joel, you and I are very passionate about, and Jamon would love to hear your thoughts. But the League Cup, a new exterior cup competition that's similar to what the league had called the Superliga. And it's basically pitting MLS teams versus Liga MX teams in a small playoff format. And the teams were chosen at random this year, except on the Liga MX side, there was a competitive choice of teams. But Chicago Fire, Cruz Azul, LA Galaxy, Club Tijuana Cholos, Houston Dynamo, Club America, Real Salt Lake, and Tigres, all in the Leagues Cup. And there's been a little bit of chatter about this Leagues Cup. What is it? What's going on? Is there just money involved? I know I've got a lot of thoughts about the Leagues Cup, but I'm going to kick it off with you.
Yes, certainly there's money involved.
Yeah, well, obviously.
100%.
Is it just all money, and how do we connect, and is it all smoke and mirrors here? Is it taking away from teams' regular form in the leagues?
I think 80% of the reason why this was introduced is for monetary reasons, for marketing reasons, for sure, 100%. There really isn't a reason why these 2 leagues should collaborate. I mean, unless they really just want to fully integrate both leagues, which I think would be beneficial, but at the same time chaotic. But what this League Cups has shown is that there's always going to be excuses on either one side or the other. Look, we think about CONCACAF Champions League. What's the excuse that MLS teams give? Oh, we're starting our season. We're out of form. We're going up against Liga MX sides that are 6, 7, 8 weeks into their season. And now they have the perfect opportunity to take advantage of, the deficiencies that the Liga MX sides are taking on, such as playing away from home. They're not going to see a single game in Mexico this entire tournament. There aren't many games, but, none of them are going to be played in Mexico. The other one is that they're a week in to their season, right? And so those 2 things right off the bat are really hampering, or should at least, in theory, hamper the Mexican side's abilities to progress and do well in this tournament. So what do MLS sides do instead, or what do the majority of MLS sides do instead? At least two of the three, is that they go off and start a bunch of homegrowns and a bunch of debt players. That's really poor in my opinion. You know, the reason why you set up these tournaments is for them to be competitive, you know, by all means, and that's not what's happening here. So in that sense, I'm disappointed. On another side, you know, I'm a bit positive. You know, I feel good about this tournament because you bring awareness, you know, to your local soccer communities. There's a sense of community. You know,
Absolutely.
there's a sense of unity, right? Bringing in heavy, not necessarily Mexican fans, but Mexican League fans, which are also, you know, Central Americans also compose that group, are a part of that group. Sorry. So yeah, in that sense, it's great.
And you may wonder, why are we talking about this on a earthquakes oriented show? It's because next year it's already been announced that it's going to expand to an 8 teams from MLS, so a 16 team format for next year. And put yourself in Matias Almeida's position. If you are potentially still in the U.S. Open Cup, if you are playing in the league and you are trying to get the top spot you can in the playoffs, and you are going to probably, at this point, the Quakes will be a part of League's Cup unless they fall off, you know, the playoffs. So the chance is very, very high that the Quakes will be a part of League's Cup next year. It's now 3 competitions, and I don't think that a team can come in and compete strongly in all 3 competitions. So I feel that choices are going to need to be made. Now today, Matias, to you, question in Spanish, so I didn't really understand the full answer,
right.
But you talked to him about this, and he did have some interesting things to say. Do you want to share this?
He had a lot of interesting things to say, and I wrote about it. It should be coming out on MLSsoccer.com soon. I guess I will get ahead of myself and get ahead of that just a bit here. He found it a bit, bogus that MLS nor Liga MX really, revealed the method of selecting the teams that they chose. Mm-hmm. Right? There's no clarity, no transparency whatsoever. The other thing that some of these MLS sides don't really want to take advantage of the position that they're in, right? To show that this league is actually progressing, that it's much closer, that they're closing in on that huge gap that was once there. So from what I understood, Almeida was a little disappointed, and he wishes that his team, the San Jose Earthquakes, was in the tournament this version, because he would have gone for all the marbles.
Yeah, I feel for him. I think this team should be in this competition, and I know there's a lot of chatter about, is this a competition that affects league play? Is this just a waste of time? No, it's not.
At all.
It's not at all. It's a chance to play other players. It's another cup competition. This country, when it comes to soccer, needs more cup competitions. We have the U.S. Open Cup, and it's prestigious in its nature, and we still need some oomph and energy and attention behind that. We have the MLS Cup. We have the Supporters Shield, which is basically based on consistency in the table. And then you've got the CONCACAF Champions League, and you've got this potential of this League's Cup doing really well. Like you had said before, Joel, I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing about MLS teams having to complain about their how they do in the CONCACAF Champions League. They should do just fine in the CONCACAF Champions League.
They should do better in the League's Cup.
Yeah, they should do just fine.
They have everything on their side.
They should do just fine in the CONCACAF Champions League. So enough of the excuses. If Major League Soccer really wants to be global and attractive and inclusive and allows folks from other teams to educate other teams about their teams, that's important. You can't teach that. That's deep, and that's on a different kind of level. And so when you see lower league sides in other countries play other lower league sides, you see other fans greeting each other. You see a lot of different camaraderie. And so this gives attention to that, especially at a time where a political climate that we live in right now is hot, heated, and divided. And so something like this can really bring us together. Sports unite and bring us together. We talk a lot about it on this show. We talk about what this show is all about. It is an inclusive show. Promise we'll take your questions. See, I had to lighten it up a little bit. But that's what this thing does. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm glad that it's here, and I can't wait to see it expand. I'm really mainly more excited to see the Quakes in it next year.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking for. So
a couple of additional tidbits here that I wanted to add. Earlier this week, before Cruz Azul took on Chicago Fire, Pedro Caixinha, Cruz Azul's coach, said that this Leagues Cup has the potential, to be like the CONCACAF Champions League, which I totally agree with. Matias Almeida echoed that today, and he also added that playing midweek games shouldn't be a problem, and it shouldn't regress the quality of teams within the league. Unless teams are playing 7 days a week, it shouldn't be a problem.
No, and the Quakes are deep enough.
Right.
And Matias has set it up this way, and this is where you bring in a player like Fierro for depth, for the runs, for a cup run, for a playoff run. You build that depth, and if you build your roster the right way, there's no reason why you cannot compete in this cup situation.
That's the other point of discussion is that most MLS rosters, given the fact that they're so top heavy, aren't structured for these types of tournaments, these heavy schedules. In opposition, you have Liga MX sides that in the 60th, 70th minute are bringing
salary cap situation that exists in MLS, that they are playing at a little bit of a handicap. But look, it's not as far apart as people make it out to be. It really is more about how you build your roster and how you plan for these types of events in advance. And just don't act like surprised when all of a sudden, another cup competition shows up on the schedule.
Right.
And bemoan, the fact that you have to compete in these things. Smart teams will figure out a way to plan for it.
Hopefully the prize pools and the bonuses for players within MLS also incentivizes them to really go after it and try to prove a point as well.
Let's take some questions. Thank you, everybody, for being so patient. Remember, we are Black and Azul. Make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about us, tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's cascade it on down. Dennis Valdivia, writes, I feel Judson has been pretty solid lately and slotting in nicely. Would Almeida hold out Godoy since he might be out already to get team cohesion? Matt Richardson, as a follow-up on top of this, goes, I think we need a debate on Godoy and Judson. Who serves the team better?
Well, it's been so long since we've seen Aníbal Godoy, and we really need to start wondering what kind of player he's going to be when he comes back. I think since he started playing the Quakes, this has been his longest setback. Certainly, Judson has proven a lot of people wrong, including myself. He's been a complete workhorse, which is what Almeida is looking for. It seems that ever since Judson was integrated into the starting 11, the Quakes backline has slowly been marching upwards, and we've been seeing that with the data.
Yep.
On top of that, it's also really allowed the Quakes to press higher. It's allowed the Quakes to be more effective on their man marking scheme, and it's allowed the Quakes to really shut down some of the biggest names that opposing teams have when going up against them. Judson has been silently, I'll agree, one of their better players alongside Magnus Eriksson. I think both of those players are doing really, really well, but not getting many applauds for it.
They're not getting the headlines. And today, Flo Youngworth talked about Judson's work again. It's the second time, and I think the last 2 times we've gotten a chance to talk to Flo, that he has specifically pointed out the type of work that Judson's doing, and he's cleaning up situations. He's able to go sideline to sideline to prevent situations from happening. That is allowing the back line to stay higher, and that is allowing the Quakes to keep pressure forward. Godoy, on the other hand, he's more of a ball winner. He's more of a distributor.
And more of a connector, too.
He's more of a connector, and we know he's not really a true out-and-out defender. I think we've seen that in past seasons, and of course Matias has turned people into better defenders. I mean, you look at Jackson Ewell, you look at Vaco, you see that, and it did happen with Godoy as well. But I think in terms of pure, defensive ability, I think Judson's, going to be higher quality there. I think it gives Matias some tactical options that he can think about. In a particular game, do I want more of that distribution, which he's getting now from Jackson Ewell, because Jackson Ewell is dropping a little deeper, getting on the ball, and helping to start that distribution. And so by the way is Vaco. So by the way is Eriksson, and they're moving the ball fairly effectively without Godoy. It took a couple games to adjust, quite honestly, but now the team has figured it out, and it's a pickle for Matias Almeida. But I think they need the depth in that spot.
Yeah, absolutely, and we talk about the depth all the time, but when having this system, you need more than 3 central midfield players that are consistent and decent. And having Godoy coming off the bench isn't a bad thing to have. I agree on Judson and our esteemed colleague that works down in Mexico, Tom Marshall, calling him the N'Golo Kante of MLS. I think everybody that watches this show knows how I feel about Judson. He's not going to get a lot of plaudits. He's not going to get a lot of praise from the media unless one of us does a story about him and chats about the unheralded defensive midfielder. Defensive midfielders don't always get that.
Still on my bucket list, by the way.
Well, there we go. Joel Soria.
To do a one-on-one with him in Portuguese.
Gonna write it. Oh, in Portuguese.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to work on my Portuguese.
All right. I like that.
Duolingo of Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
Matthew Quesada, he's got what CB partnership do you think is most effective? What center back partnership do you think is most effective? This is another depth kind of issue type of question.
Oof.
Yeah.
And there's a lot there too. Jamon.
Well, we spoke to Harold Cummings today. He was one of the players that we got to talk to at the midweek press conference, and he was out for a couple months. He basically said that Matias Almeida has prepared these players so well that he was able to fit into the national team quickly
Seamlessly.
for Panama.
Absolutely.
He was in shape. He didn't have to, and that frequently happens. That frequently happens when players go to their national teams, and even Greg Berhalter pointed this out with some of the players that came into national team camp. He had to get them in shape. And Cummings said, I just walked right in, and I was in shape, and he got pushed very hard. He comes back, he looks great, he looks trim, and he plays his best when he is fully fit. And we saw that for a little bit last season. Those were his better games. He comes right back in, slots back in, and the Quakes, other than giving up the 1 goal on the set piece, did very well in the back end, and Cummings was a big part of that. He cleaned up a lot of situations on potential counterattacks.
To the eye, it's really, really hard to pick one or the other. Florian or Guram or Florian or Cummings. I think this is another case of, being in this good pickle, this positive pickle, right? Where depth is just really leaking nothing but positive fluids all over the Quakes locker room. It's hard to answer the question really unless I have the actual data in front of me to really start and pick apart either tandems. I think that today we talked to those two players that are going to be starting this weekend, and that is Florian and Harold, and I think they're going to do well. Now the thing with Guram is that these last couple of weeks he came in clutch.
Yeah.
He had a lot of really praiseworthy last minute tackles that could have resulted in goals for the opposing teams without a doubt, and the one that stands out is that tackle against LA Galaxy at Stanford. So, Guram surely did impress, but before he started, Cummings was doing the same.
Yeah, I agree. My center back pairing, because I'll just be really direct, which isn't usual for me on this show, is going to be is Cummings and Florian Youngworth. The reason being, I just think Kasia had a difficult time integrating in the beginning, and we were not that harsh on him in the beginning, but at the same time, I think he's matured, he's come into his own, he's seen everybody else step up, and as I said at the beginning of this program tonight, the rising of all ships. So I still think Cummings, who was first choice before he went to the Gold Cup, and now is first choice after he came back from the Gold Cup, and Florian that worked his way back into this side, who's a fan favorite that fans want to see on that team sheet 100% of the time, and also Kasia, I think he's making himself very known that he could be a fan favorite for the future and has done a lot of great off-the-field work and seems like a fantastic human being, has stepped it up and got it together. So 3 center backs.
So I guess we can all agree, though, that Florian is the unquestionable center back.
Absolutely.
For now, he's in the team. He's in the team.
In fact, we don't even know.
The other two will
We don't even
replace
know
each other here and there.
since the team has gotten it together and improved the handoffs and the communication in the back. We actually haven't gotten to see what would happen if we put Kasia and Cummings together again. We may have to. The way that Flo plays, he's always 100% out there. We've seen him take knocks in the middle of games, and everyone holds their collective breath because he goes so hard that an injury could happen to him. Has happened before.
Right.
So I think they're going to need this depth before the end of the season.
Let's keep in mind that Florian is not a natural center back.
There's that.
Noted. Jonathan Ukra. By the way, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for writing us a question. I think this is one of your first questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan. If LAFC ends up sweeping multiple of the trophies, is a CCL spot a realistic possibility for the Quakes this season? Okay. What do you make?
No, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I think Leagues Cup is a more realistic target
Right.
for the team right now. The way that the formats will play out, neither the Quakes nor LAFC are eligible, obviously, to win Open Cup at this point. That's one of the spots.
That's gone.
Supporters Shield will be one of the spots. MLS Final will determine other spots, and so one of those is going to go at least to the Eastern Conference. There's only one other spot available, and I'd have to actually look up the tiebreaker rules, to be honest. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah, neither do I, but it's less than a 2% chance, I guess. I feel comfortable saying that. The Quakes are going to have to shoot for that Leagues Cup, which, as we were talking, also has a lot of potential. According to some big figures here in the U.S., in Matias Almeida and Pedro Caixinha in Mexico, it's going to be a good platform for the Quakes if they get there. Playing against Mexican counterparts, that hasn't happened since 2014, 2015 against Toluca, I think, in the CONCACAF Champions League semifinal. So it's been a long time. Well, they've had friendlies, but that's obviously a meaningless competition. It's going to be positive for the Quakes if they get there. So I don't think, to answer your question, Jonathan, no CONCACAF Champions League, but probably Leagues Cup.
Unless they can pull out MLS Cup.
Yeah,
Leagues
you never know.
Cup.
Never know.
Keep it noted. On Twitter, I think someone wrote that it's going to be kind of the Europa League of that. And I got to be honest, my team won the Europa League this last year, Chelsea. I was born in West London. I'm a real Chelsea fan. I'm not a plastic Chelsea fan. And the Europa League is
Oh, my
fun.
God.
And this Leagues Cup is going to be fun, too, like we had chatted about earlier in the show. Alex Morgan, the 4th member of our team, who's not here today, but he writes, should Matias Almeida be concerned that his team have allowed so many early goals recently? Why are they more vulnerable in the first 10 minutes? I'm going to send it to our stats guy here, Jamon Moore.
I tried to pin Flo down on this exact question today, Alex, and frankly, he wouldn't be pinned down. He basically said, look, goals can happen at any point in a match. It doesn't matter if they happen in the first 10 minutes. It doesn't matter if they happen in the last 10 minutes. The final score is what matters. Right now, if the Quakes go out and they give up a goal, they have every confidence that they're going to be able to get back in the game. Whereas he admitted last year they give up a goal that early and they expect to lose.
We saw
4-0,
it, yeah,
right?
exactly.
We saw it, and so. Flo basically said, look, we understand goals come at different points. There's game state situations, all those kinds of things happen. We have every confidence we can get back in the game. For me personally, I do feel it's a little bit of a concern that the team is less organized, particularly going on the road in the first 10 or 15 minutes. It's kind of natural and normal in MLS for home sides to push hard for an early goal, and other teams have been able to do that. But once that first 10, 15 minutes has passed, it's been all Earthquakes for the last 3 or so road games.
I stand with Matias 100%. It does not matter. It doesn't matter if the opposing team scores in the first minute, if they score in the first 30 seconds, if they score in the first 5 minutes. The Quakes are going to find a way to find themselves back in the game. They're going to fire at all cylinders. This team feeds off that. They feed off the adversity. They feed off of, visitors or even being on the road and the hosts just really trying to impose themselves on them and trying to play an orthodox style, because like I said, most teams that go up against this team really, really just want to make a statement, and at the end of the day they leave themselves vulnerable, and the Quakes are all about taking advantage of that. To me, it clearly it doesn't matter. The Quakes are in a good place right now.
But watch Colorado on the corner kicks this weekend.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Final question comes from Alicio Sandoval. Always has some good questions for us. Alicio writes, how about 3 mid-season prediction for the end of the season? One has to go out on a limb. I'm assuming that he's asking, he'd like us to give a mid-season prediction for the end of the year. Back to you, Joel.
No predictions from me.
No predictions from Joel Soria.
I'm not a predictions person.
Me neither.
That's for 3
But
predictions, and one has to go on a limb.
He's
Just
asking.
Make 2 simple predictions and then 1 out on a limb. I'll do the out on the limb. You do
no,
the simple.
you can take care of them. How about
okay,
that?
Jamon.
So here's one of the things I was looking at before I came in here was really the schedule that the Earthquakes have to do. They've got a very interesting situation where they're going to have to face. First off, it looks kind of easier for the short term. You got Colorado twice. One of those is obviously home and away, and then Columbus and Sporting KC, and those are games that you should expect to get results in. But then it gets quite a bit tougher. So it's LAFC. You get Vancouver, Orlando City in there at home. Those are going to be okay, but here's where it gets tough. Real Salt Lake on the road. New York City FC on the road. Atlanta United on the road. Portland on the road.
Oh, we forgot the Philadelphia
at home.
Yeah.
But still Philadelphia, who's basically top in the East, right? They're going to end with maybe the toughest schedule in MLS. And while I would like to say that this team can finish as high as second, I just don't see them fighting through that period of time and being able to get out there in the same type of run that they've been putting together now. My prediction is that the Quakes are most likely to finish right around 6th in the Western Conference based upon the way that schedule is going to play out. That's my prediction. I don't know if that's out on a limb or not, but I feel at this point
that really reminds me, I actually made that prediction earlier this season.
There you go. So we're just
so I am a predictions person.
I'm
contradicting myself here.
Coming full circle.
What a guy.
I said 6th or 7th.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into our show tonight. We are Black and Azul, coming to you weekly, either from the studio here or we do a post-game show from Avaya. We'll obviously keep you posted. You can find us on Twitter at Black and Azul, all one word. You can hit us up on Facebook, the same thing as well. And, of course, you could subscribe right here to YouTube.
Leave a like, please.
Leave a like for Joel and for the rest of the team, and make sure that you tell someone about this. Appreciate you guys growing the game with us. This is what this is all about, and this is an inclusive show. We want to take your questions. Feel free to reach out whenever. We're all on Twitter as well to take any questions and to chat with you and to discuss. We have a new website coming out very soon as well, so stay tuned for that. Our associate producer is Aaron Sholl. Our producer and director is Jason Sholl. Jamon Moore, Joel Soria, Charles Wollin. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.